we're going to look at boot care, and as we move into the middle of the off season and it's time for the application process, it's a good time to take a look at your gear and do any maintenance to your equipment and maintain some of the stuff you guys depend on during hunting season. So I'm going to show you what I do with my boots as far as boot care goes, and we need a few things as far as tools and materials to get that done. It's pretty basic, but you can also do some damage to your equipment if you're not careful. People spend a lot of money on their foot care or their boots, and it's a good idea to take care of them. So first thing is, what we're going to do is we're going to take the laces out, and then we're going to clean these. You can do that with either a brush, or I like to even take the air compressor and get down into the nooks and crannies. But you're going to remove all the loose debris. And then we're going to wash the boots, and I'll show you the process that I use for that. And then we're going to treat the boots, and we'll go through all of that. So stay tuned, and we're going to start with removing laces. Once we have the laces removed, you might want to inspect the laces. I've looked at these, and these look like they're in pretty good shape still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run them through a mild wash with some clothes in the washing machine, and then we're going to replace those. The next step after the laces are removed is we want to remove all of the loose debris and dirt. And to do that, I just use a shoe brush. And I go through, and especially around the hardware, we want to try to remove any loose dirt, anything that's built up. In the bottoms here, there's some stuff that's caked in. I'll worry about that later, but I can get that out with a screwdriver, a small wire brush. But in between the creases and in the tongue area here, it's a good idea to get all that you can get off. So we'll do that on both boots, and then we'll go to the next step, which is washing. So now the next step is to wash the boots. But what you don't want to do is couple of things. You don't want to put these in the washing machine, and you don't want to submerge them into the water. What I'm using here is a very thinned out, light, mild soap with some lukewarm water. And I'm going to use my toothbrush and a rag just to start wiping these down. I could even use a wet brush, wet bristled brush. So to start with, what we're going to do is we're going to dip the rag in here, and we're just going to start washing these boots down. The goal here is not to get ridiculous. All we're trying to do is get the light surface area of dirt off from them, get them clean, make sure there's no debris in these nooks and crannies. You can take a little toothbrush and work those areas out on both sides. Just wash the dust and dirt off from them. Get in the tongue area, in the creases. Get along the rubber band and the edge of the sole. And then work around the hardware. And then we'll set that down, and I'll go ahead and do the other one, and then we'll come back in. Once you have your boots washed and scrubbed down and totally clean, the next thing to do is to set them aside to dry. And there's a couple of ways of doing this. I used to see guys turn their oven on and open the oven door and set them on the oven door to catch all that heat. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to set them in direct sunlight. What will happen is your boots may shrink, they may crack, they may curl up, and so you want to keep them away from a lot of heat. And there's two ways that I do this. One is you can coil up a bunch of paper towel and stuff inside the boot and just set it aside overnight. Or what I do is I set mine on my peat chute dryer, and I'll leave it, for several hours until I feel like they're dry. I didn't totally submerge these, so it isn't going to take a long time for these to dry. The next step after I get these dry, we'll come back in and I'll show you how we treat them and what we use to treat them. So stay. Now that our boots are dry and they sat overnight, I left them on that peat shoe dryer for about 4 hours, and then I took them off, and then it's been overnight. And so now we have some clean boots. I cleaned the soles out I used a screwdriver and some compressed air and a soft bristle brush, and I got those cleaned out. So the boots are clean. I ran the shoelaces through the washing machine with a mild soap and hung them to dry. So they're dry, they're ready to be replaced. And now the next step is to condition and apply a preservative to our boots. And what I use is I used Obanoff's, which was developed by a wildland firefighter, and it has some important ingredients that I really believe in. In my early days when I was in college, I worked in the woods logging, and we bought expensive cork boots, pure leather, and we were in those when I worked in Alaska 5 days a week, 12 hours a day, a 10-hour day on Saturday, and an 8-hour day on Sunday. And we worked, that was our schedule. And we were in that wet muskeg, and those expensive leather boots would form to your feet. But every night, you only had so many hours for those to be dried out and taken care of. And so we used a peat shoe dryer, and then we treated our boots. Now, I'm not going to treat these boots the way we did up there. What we did up there, we used the Obanoff's, and then we also used Snow Seal, and we would mix the two. Here, I'm just going to use the Obanoff's, which was developed by a wildland firefighter. And I'm just going to apply this, and then we're going to allow that to set. The ingredients of this and why I like this, is it uses natural oils. It uses natural beeswax, not paraffin, which is a petroleum-based product, and it uses propolis. And propolis is a natural resin, and it's a natural antibacterial. So they've got this formulation that they use, and I believe in it. The problem with using a petroleum-based product, like I used to, I've used in the past at Hubbard's Shoe Grease, and any petroleum-based product will tend over time to rot your stitches. So I really believe in this Obanoff's. So what we're going to do is we're going to treat these. Sometimes what works really good, I've heard people say, oh, you got to heat your boots up so it melts in. I would never heat your boots up to do this. What I would rather do, if I was going to heat anything up at all, is I would set this container in a container of hot water until it was to melt, and then you could apply it that way. I usually apply this just with my fingers. I'll just work up some of this on my fingers, and then we'll start to rub that in. It's a really great product. I believe in it. It can really restore the leather and your boots. And of course, these boots, a lot of these kinds of boots like this are very expensive, and so you want to get as many years of use as you can out of them. I don't know how many I've got on these, but I'll bet you it's more than 7. It's probably pushing 10. And you can barely see, with all the miles we've walked, you can barely see the wear marks on the bottom tread. So they've held up really well. There's a whole bunch of different brands out there. And, these can run in the high threes to the $600 range. And so you want to take care of them. And I see so many people that don't really take care of their gear. And then every few years you're going to have to replace it. So you can see it kind of darkens, and it will darken a new pair of boots. It will darken them. I know people have freaked out when they see that. Oh my gosh, it's really darkening them. Yeah, it does darken them, but it also takes care of them. So I will go ahead and finish applying this. I'm going to get it all over everything, including in between all of the hardware. I don't want to overdo it on the hardware area, so I'll use a little toothbrush to work it in, and then I'll work the excess out. And then I'll just take this, and then I'll work that in between that hardware. So I'll finish treating these boots, and then we'll come back in. All right, so we have these boots, got the conditioner on them, the oil on them, the Obernovs, and it's going to have to soak now. I can see it's on there pretty good, so it's a pretty heavy product with the beeswax and the natural oils and the propolis in there. And so you really got to work it, and you can create some friction with your fingers, and that tends to soften it a bit. But I work it into every nook and cranny, and kind of the last thing I do is I take my toothbrush and I just make sure there's no buildup of excess around any of the hardware. So I'll get all that done on both boots, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow these to soak in for a bit, and then we'll come back and we'll lace them, and then I'll show you the finished product. Well, there you have it, folks. We have cleaned, washed, and treated our hiking boots, and they're ready to go for another season. In conclusion, use the off season to take care of your gear, update your equipment, and until next time, thanks for watching. The quality of your hunt will have a lot to do with how well you take care of your feet and the quality of your footwear. Today I want to talk just a little bit about caring for your feet. I know so many friends of mine that have blisters every hunting season, or their feet get cold and they've got a cold and wet and they've got to return because of that. So I learned a long time ago when I was in college, I was logging, and I had an old timer tell me one time how to keep from getting blisters running up and down hillsides in those heavy cork boots that we used to wear. And it basically came down to wearing 2 pairs of socks. You wear one as a liner, and then you wear some kind of a wool. This is a merino wool here. And if you have those 2 things going for you, it kind of works that friction. I have a lot of people that I know don't like to wear 2 pairs of socks. It drives them nuts. They don't like their feet feeling bound up. But I can tell you from experience, I don't get blisters. Every year I don't get blisters. And somebody in our hunting group will get blisters, or a friend of mine will tell me, yeah, we had a great hunt except for my feet killed me the whole time. So quality boots and quality socks make a big difference. And so what I wear is this is a Fox River brand. I guess it's cotton, but it's a wick type sock, so it wicks the moisture away from your foot. And a little thing I do is I turn them inside out. The outside of this is very smooth, and so I wear them inside out, and I wear them with this rough side out as my liner, and then I wear a nice merino wool over the top of that, and that tends to take care of any potential blisters that I might have. And we hike miles a day, 6, 8, 10, 12 miles a day that we put on our hunts. And I don't, even in the weather in the 20s or the weather in the 70s or 80s, I wear the same thing with my boots. And so I've got a quality pair of boots that fit great. They're broke in, and then I wear a great liner that wicks away moisture, and I wear a merino wool sock. That's how I avoid blisters.